Most people think prospect value is only about home runs. That's the trap. Because sometimes the most valuable profiles in baseball are the ones that don't scream power. They quietly create pressure every single inning. Today we're talking about one of the most unique speed profiles in the minors right now, Kendall George, a Los Angeles Dodgers outfield prospect who just put up a stolen base season that almost doesn't sound real. Let's start with the headline. Kendall George stole 100 bases in a single season. And he didn't just barely reach it. Reports show he was 101 for 125 on stolen base attempts in that season. That means two things at the same time. First, the speed is elite. Second, he's aggressive enough to change games with his legs. And if you watched baseball closely, you already know why this matters again. Baseball has entered a new era where speed is not just nice to have. Speed is a weapon. Pitchers are more focused on hitters. Catchers are dealing with faster deliveries. And rules have created more opportunities for base stealers. So when you see a player take over a league on the bases, it's not a gimmick. It's a skill that can translate if the rest of the profile develops. Now here's the key. Kendall George is not just a runner. He's not a track guy with a bat. He improved his overall offensive season line to .295, 409, 370, good for a 131 WRC+, while playing at high A Great Lakes. That's not empty speed. That's getting on base. And if you're a true leadoff profile, on-base skill is the engine, speed is the amplifier. And it got even more interesting late in the season. In August, he reportedly hit .378, 496, 429 with a 174 WRC+, plus 34 stolen bases in that month alone. That type of second half surge is not random. It usually reflects adjustment, confidence, and a player beginning to understand how to dominate a level. George. From a scouting perspective, Baseball Savant describes him as an aggressive base stealer, someone who runs down balls gap to gap in center field, and they even joke he's a 90 runner, which is another way of saying he has top-tier speed. The scouting grades shown there list run 80 with hit around 50, power around 30, field around 60, and overall 40. That's a very specific kind of prospect. Not built around home run power, but built around pressure, defense, and on-base impact. Now, we can't talk about Kendall George without talking about the Dodgers development system, because context matters. The same player in different organizations can develop very differently. The Dodgers are known for structure, development planning, and maximizing player tools. When a player like this is in that system, the probability of refinement increases, especially in the areas that matter for his ceiling: contact consistency, decision-making, and strength development over time. And here's a major 2026 update that matters. Kendall George has been named a non-roster invitee to Dodgers Major League Spring Training. That doesn't mean he's breaking camp with the big league roster tomorrow, but it does mean the organization wants him in that environment, seeing major league routines, learning from veteran staff, and getting exposure to higher competition. For a young prospect, that's both a signal and a test. Now let's bring in the FlipZonix mindset. At FlipZonix, we don't build content around hype. We build it around understanding. That means we ask better questions. So the first real question is, what does a 100 stolen base season actually tell us? It tells us he has rare speed, he's willing to use it, he understands timing, reads, and pitcher patterns. He can apply pressure consistently, not occasionally. Even Kendall George himself talked about learning technique, choosing better spots, and not running recklessly, which tells us the base stealing is becoming more intelligent, not just faster. That's a huge difference. Fast doesn't always translate. Fast with skill is where careers are made. Now the second question, how does a speed-first profile become valuable in MLB? There are a few pathways: a true leadoff hitter who gets on base and steals bags, a high-level center fielder who saves runs and creates offense with legs, a matchup nightmare late in games, pinch run value that turns into more playing time, a player who develops enough gap power to keep pitchers honest. This is why the power-only perspective is incomplete. Speed impacts defense, base running, and run creation. If the bat becomes good enough, the value becomes real. Now here's the part collectors need to understand. The market often underprices these profiles early because hobby culture is addicted to home runs, but organizations aren't. Teams love players who create pressure, prevent runs, and force mistakes. So let's talk about the card market angle, the FlipZonix way. You told me his cards feel affordable, and that's exactly where opportunity lives, because affordable doesn't mean bad. Affordable often means the market hasn't decided yet, and the market usually decides after a few triggers: promotion to AA sustained on-base production, national prospect ranking momentum, spring training performance clips, a top prospects headline run. Kendall George already has highlight moments. There were games where he stole 6 bases in one game at high A. That's not normal. That type of headline creates awareness, and awareness is one of the most powerful drivers in card pricing. Now let's add one more important data point. Kendall George was the Dodgers' 2023 first-round draft pick, and FanGraphs lists a signing bonus of $1,847,500. A first-round pick with elite speed, strong on-base results, and organizational investment. That's a real profile. So in the FlipZonix lab, how would we frame Kendall George? We would classify him as a quiet compounder, a player whose value can build steadily over time because the skill set produces impact in multiple ways and it fits the modern game. But we also stay honest about risk. Here's the risk with speed-first prospects. If the bat stalls, the profile becomes role-player dependent. If he doesn't reach base enough, speed can't activate if power never develops at all. Pitchers challenge him more. That's why we don't invest blindly. We track indicators: OBP and walk rate trends, strikeout rate stability, contact quality development, level-to-level adjustment speed. And this is where we introduce FlipZonix lab simulation thinking with a disclaimer. Our simulation is not a prediction. It doesn't guarantee anything. It's a tool that creates context by comparing profiles to historical outcomes. When we run a speed-first, on-base oriented player through a model, the key question is not, will he be a star? The real question is, does the profile have multiple ways to become valuable? Kendall George's profile has multiple pathways to value. Defense and center field base running impact on-base creation potential gap power later as he matures. And when a player has more than one pathway, downside risk becomes more manageable, especially in a strong organization. Now, let's talk about what I think is the most underrated part of Kendall George's story. He's proving that speed can be sustainable across a full season, not just in short stretches. Articles covering his milestone note he wasn't just stealing, he was doing it repeatedly, with multi-steal games and a massive second-half run. That tells us durability and mental commitment, which matters more than people think. So what's the collector strategy here? The FlipZonix approach would be: focus on affordable entry points while the market is undecided, prioritize scarcity and condition. Where possible, avoid chasing spike moments. Stay patient and monitor development. Because the biggest mistake collectors make is buying after the headline peak. FlipZonix is built to identify value before the crowd arrives, not because we're guessing, but because we're watching the right signals. And remember, this is not about promising you returns. This is about teaching you how to read the game behind the game. Kendall George is a Dodgers prospect who just posted a historically rare stolen base season, improved his on-base impact, surged late in the year, and now gets a 2026 spring training invitation to big league camp. That is exactly the type of profile that can look quiet today and feel obvious later. Now, before we close, here's the key takeaway. In modern baseball, speed is not a gimmick. Speed is leverage. But speed becomes real value only when it's connected to on-base skill, defense, and development environment. Kendall George has all three ingredients showing signs of progress, and that's why we're watching him. If this analysis brought you value, make sure to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and follow us on all our social media platforms for more in-depth content like this. Here at FlipZonix, we focus on education, data, and long-term thinking, not hype. We break down players, metrics, development paths, and market behavior so you can make more informed decisions over time. Thank you for being part of this community, and we'll see you in the next analysis. FlipZonix, value through knowledge.